thought this was such an interesting film because it feels like this big concept story, but it's told in such a personal way. So when you read the script, what did you make of the world that it creates? Did you visually see it right away, or did you have a lot of questions?
I actually feel like I saw it basically just as it appears in the film. I have to say, I think it is pretty true to what I kind of imagined. Edson, I think, did a good job of sort of providing a visual world in the script that he wrote, and sort of even the contrast of this like small house. It felt sort of like womb-like in comparison to the expanse of the desert. I think it matched up pretty well to what I had pictured.
Yeah, I would echo that. It really what was on the script and on the page really was translated pretty directly to screen. And the script didn't change very much. We changed a little bit of language to make it a lot more nuanced for the actor playing. Like we got a chance to like cut lines and things like that. But if anything, Edson did more cutting back on the script than he did really adding to it because it was already so full. And I think what we made was pretty much what was always on paper.
It feels like a huge responsibility to be someone who determines which individuals are most suitable for the journey of life. So, Winston, up until this moment, how has Will felt about that?
I think Will is in a place of deep confusion, and it is a huge conflict for him being a person who's lived before, who to some degree feels like he was defeated by life to the point where he took his own life and now has to be the person who is deciding who gets to be born. And with a clear understanding that life can be hard and life can be traumatic and life can be painful, but he's still in a space of trying to decide and help, guide these spirits to essentially what might be, one of their final destinations, and giving this present to all the others. It's just something that's really special. So I think for Will, I don't think really wants to be there, but the way he goes through his life and his world is one of trying to have as much control as he can, because that's the only thing that seems like reality that he can actually discern. Like even him waking up in that space, I kind of imagine was incredibly traumatic.
It seems so sad and lonely and empty to watch life unfold on a series of old TV sets. So, Zazie, what do you think it is that makes Emma different? What do you think it is about her that makes Will start to look at things differently?
Emma just sort of functions a lot in the present and remaining present, and really just seeing things as they are right in front of her, whether they're good or bad. And I think Will kind of being sort of in this space of the doldrums of day-to-day existence. I think that Emma kind of awakens sort of interest again in that these things that you're doing every day are special. And I think that her kind of childlike wonder around it all is infectious to Will, and allows him to review what he's been taking for granted, and then even to choose to review what his pain is and what his grief is, versus kind of just like compartmentalizing it and putting it away. I think she challenges it and says, I see this here too, like what is it? And makes him kind of face it. And I think she's a very unique character. I mean, and all of them have this, but the uniqueness in not having a backstory, not having a background, and really just engaging in what's right there. And I think Emma particularly is very just moment by moment oriented, not the future and not the past. Because I think some of the other spirits have a bit more concern about the future and what's going to happen with them.
There's something so incredibly beautiful and sad about that sequence at the end where Will is giving his monologue and the two of them are having these moments and they're screaming with each other. What got you into that moment to really live in it and embrace and feel all of it? Was part of what helped you guys having each other there?
You know, it's very interesting. We didn't rehearse that scene at all between the two of us. I know, Winston, you were working on the monologue. You and Edson were doing stuff together, but I kind of just went in and just listened. And I remember, you know, during the whole shoot as Will, Winston, you had kind of like a, you know, your character was kind of guarded or trying to protect himself. And I remember that day you came in and you're like, I'm just ready to give. And it was really cool to see Will give. And I wanted, and I was very moved by it. And I was surprised at how just kind of being there. And then with the desert being so wide open, it was such a different feeling. It felt very cathartic versus this kind of small space that we had been living in up until that moment. Those were like the last days of shooting when we did that. And so there was a, you know, I think it was a mix of preparing, a shift in how we were working, and then also just this change in space.
Was it the same way for you, Winston? I mean, was that something that really just felt like a moment to have?
Of course, you know, I always say that the scene didn't really come together until the final scene partner showed up, and that was the salt flats, the desert. And the desert itself informed us on what the monologue meant and how we can exist in that moment. Because we were just out there in the open, and there was a lot of beautiful energy, like a lot of beautiful energy of land and environment there. And when you're speaking about resources and natural factors and being in touch with the earth and being in touch with all things around you, there's no better stage and no better, you know, scene partner than the landscape. And it really became something incredibly special. And then that combined with, like Zazie said, we built towards that moment. So we had nothing but a lot of trust as performers. And the kind of agape love that the two of them created for each other, Emma and Will, kind of got to be center stage at that moment where she finally got to play with him. He finally got to play again. And it was really, you know, it became something that just was really special.
Well, Winston, we all know that the Black Panther sequel is filming, but I'm curious for you, after making the first movie and the success of that, and then the loss of Chadwick, was it emotional to read that script?
Yeah, it was very emotional to read the script. It was emotional to pack, to go back to set. But, you know, we're all a bit of a family now. And, you know, we grieve together and we're making something really special.
Zazie, for you, what can you say to tease season 2 of Invincible?
I don't know what's going to happen. You probably know more than I do, honestly. So
I already
all
asked.
I know is that I'm anxious.
Yeah, no. Honestly, I have nothing to say. I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you for talking to me. I loved this. I thought it was so beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina.